We have a little announcement to make. We have the first deafened baby announced. First.
You need to have a pause for effect.
Right. Okay.
And then.
Yeah. Shall I just
Attention! We have an announcement to make. Please, everyone, be quiet for the forthcoming announcement.
We have actually use some sound effects, VJ. Come on.
Yeah, right.
We have We have the first deafened baby. Yes.
There you go. Go ahead.
Well, last time on the show, we had Mia, Miss Praxis of the Butt, and she was a lazy recursive function, a lazy recursive person, sorry, but that's been realized now. So she's given birth to a healthy baby boy. So congratulations to Mia and her husband, and of course to the little fella.
Welcome to the world. Welcome to the functional world.
Congrats.
Yeah.
A big congratulations from our side as well.
Yes, and congratulations to everyone.
So on that happy note, let's start the show with the secret announcer that we had, or the announcing person. What do you call these people? Like who make these things? Announcers?
Yeah, announcers, yeah.
The people on the tannoys. Attention,
Yes,
all peoples on tannoys, please come to the announcement booth.
Perfect.
The tannoy person. There's probably a politically correct version of the tannoy person. Yeah.
Yeah.
The tannoyist.
This is like the episode number 63 with that person who is named Mr. Bruce. Welcome to Deafen, Bruce.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Morning.
So,
indeed, good morning. It is universal greeting time.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm new on the channel. So you do realize when we end, we have to say goodnight, then?
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. We have been recently, like, I say, chatting to Bruce on the Clojurian Slack. It's a very asynchronous, slow-moving chat. But everyone, apparently you have to say, as soon as you come there, you have to say morning.
Well, it just lets you know that there are other people around, that the channel's not completely dead, that, that there's a bit of community going on, and you can start, and especially with the off-topic channels, because it's not, you don't come in and ask questions on Clojure Europe or Clojure London or something like that. You just say,
Well, apparently you do, though. Recently, people have been falling foul of that rule, but we have to kick them off, Bruce.
Being on topic is off topic, which is fine.
God damn it! That's not this podcast is not about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it did get to the point where we did have to take the cycling off to another channel, though. So there's a Brompton channel that I say good morning on as well.
Oh, right.
Though not everybody there has a Brompton, and I don't have a Brompton at the moment because my Brompton's in the shop. So, but everybody. So I say good morning on Clojure Europe, and I say good morning on Brompton.
Oh.
Is it Clojure Brompton or just Brompton?
It's just Brompton. Not everything on the Clojurian Slack starts with Clojure. Just most things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a cycle function, so I guess it's kind of on topic to some extent. Yeah. Anyway, Bruce.
Joke, man.
Yes.
Bruce. Legend. Wait for it. Dairy. Wow.
Oh. It's nice to know I'm dairy. I'm definitely very cheesy.
Yeah. Well, there's a vegan rewrite of that where it's legend. Wait for it. Non-dairy.
Oh, good.
You've heard that one before, I think, Bruce. But
I haven't. No, that's a completely new one on me.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
It's a thing from
something British
How I Met Your Mother.
Or English thing?
It's an American series, How I Met Your Mother. And the guy in there who's a real idiot, who's a real asshole, is legend. Wait for it, Derry.
Oh, yeah, Derry.
Right.
Yeah. Oh.
So anyway, okay.
Man, I couldn't imagine you making any contemporary references. That's why I was getting confused. So usually Ray's references are, I don't know, Victorian usually. So I'm like, what is he talking about?
No, I mean, if they're Victorian, that's better than me. I always get told off because I always bring up medieval references. So,
All right. Well, let's get medieval.
Yes.
That always sounds a bit threatening, It reminds me of the Reservoir Dogs. Was it Reservoir Dogs? I'm going to get medieval on his ass.
Yeah.
So we need to prepare for the duel. Is it still Victorian? Nah, it should be medieval, right? Like knights fighting with long poles and shit and whatnot.
Yeah, sure, but people can fight at any point. I mean, stupid fighting is always stupid.
It's with us since the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so we'll get into medieval fight.
I think the jousting though was more silly than stupid. You know, I mean, it was. I know it was serious in some respects, but it was like it looked very silly. You know, you can't. I mean, if you just think about it logically, it's kind of crazy, really. Big pointy sticks on a horse with.
Yeah. What is it called again?
Jousting.
Jousting. Okay.
Jousting. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the name says it all. So, the name is already silly. So, like, well, what the hell are you supposed to do? Like, on a horse with a long stick and then poke each other, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It was meant to be the reason why Henry VIII became the sort of big guy that he became in the end. Had a jousting injury.
Okay.
Which was a bit crazy for a king to be a jouster, but you know, there we are. Those were the medieval days or the Tudor days.
Well, he used to like to wrestle and stuff like that as well, but he demanded that he won all the time. So when he wrestled the King of France and the King of France beat him, he was terribly, terribly upset.
Yeah, it's a bit like, you know, like bringing it up to my era, Idi Amin, you know, being the Ugandan swimming champion.
Basically the same. So many things haven't changed.
So, welcome to Medieval Podcast, episode number 63, where we have two medieval experts. I don't know if you're from that age or whatever, but I know, Bruce, you've been in the industry for since the dark ages of software.
Not quite that long, yeah.
But you have seen some darker times, I suppose, before coming into the Clojure world.
I have indeed. I mean, you know, I was a Salesforce consultant for a while. That's why I got.
Oh my god!
Yes.
Oh fuck. Okay. Well, yeah. Let's get the first. Oh fuck out of the way.
So let's just begin from the beginning. About how did you get into Clojure from all the weird places?
So it's actually
Salesforce.
I was actually looking that up, and it was I was somebody.
When you say you were looking it up, you mean you had to look it up on the internet?
No. I think he was taking his horse like Gandalf and then just riding to that place and looking at older manuscripts. What happened?
So I literally went back in my emails and I found the meeting invite, the meetup for the talk Rich Hickey gave, Clojure for Java Programmers, on the 12th of March 2009 at Skills Matter when they were still on Sackford Street.
Wow!
Right. So this is going back a fair ways, and that was. I went to go hear Rich Hickey's talk. I'd already tried Scheme and tried Common Lisp, and gotten a bit frustrated because I wanted to do things like XML and web programming. And it's great if you want to write your own XML and web programming libraries, which I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And I'd looked at a couple of Java
things like that out in the world.
Yeah. And I'd tried a couple of Java Lisps, and none of them were particularly nice. But I went to Rich's talk in London and thought it was really cool. And then I forget when the first Clojure dojo was, but it was after the first Python dojo. And I went to that, and that was organized by Alex Scordelis at ThoughtWorks. And that would have been 2009. And it was at the end of the first one. Alex said he wasn't going to do another one. And Robert Rees came up, because he knew me from the Python dojo, he came up and tricked me into running most of the rest of them until I stopped running them, and then other people took them over. So that's what it was. It was basically a talk, a bit of interest, and being tricked by Robert Rees. So it's all his fault. So you can get him on, and you can accuse him, and you say, "Why did he do that mean thing to Bruce?"
Yeah. make you run Python dojo, right?
No. So there were a whole bunch of other people involved with the Python dojo, but it was the Clojure dojo he made me run. But he tricked me into running.
Nice.
So I started running that every month, and we ran dojos for the Clojurians for, gosh, I can't remember how long. And then eventually we started doing talks at Skills Matter, because I knew Wendy at Skills Matter said, "Hey, can we come in and do a talk once a month?" And I knew from having run some things before that the magic is picking a stable date. You pick a stable date, and then you've got the venue, and then you just make everything else work around that.
Yeah, yeah. So you're involved in the community building since the beginning, then, pretty much, in London, because London became pretty much like hotspot for Clojure, right? And
yeah, I think so.
It started there mostly.
Well, I mean, I remember like when I first started Clojure, there was all these pictures of Bruce all over the place. I didn't know who Bruce was,
man.
but Bruce was everywhere. You know, so Bruce was like, you know, a legend in his own lunchtime, and the people like were like iconifying you, Bruce, at the beginning. You know, you're like a pop star in the Clojure world, you know. You know, like the Brad Pitt of Clojure.
Figure of abuse. I think that's more what it was. But yeah. No. There were. Thankfully, that particular in joke seems to have died, which is quite good. Because a lot of people said, "Who's that guy?" Everybody's laughing at that guy on the screen, and we don't know who it is. Because it mostly started coming up when I wasn't as involved in doing stuff as well. When it was really John Stevenson, who you'd interviewed before, who was mostly doing most of the organizing by that point. So it's like, who is this Bruce who's not been doing anything and been at home burned out and depressed and not actually coming to any events?
Some legend, you know.
Yeah, definitely
Putative.
Mythic. Yeah, mythic and sort of possibly not existing. There's not any proof that he exists. You know, he's just some origin story.
Yeah, lazy Bruce.
Nice. Yeah. So from Salesforce, and then you started your Clojure journey, but now you are already working with Clojure for so long, right? And you're building your company in Clojure. So can you tell us about what you're building and what you're busy with?
Yeah. So we build models in Clojure with a little bit of R sometimes, but mostly in Clojure.
Machine learning and data science models.
Yeah. So in machine learning and data science, in particular, so the very specific thing is in predicting demand for special educational needs and predicting demand for looked after children and children's social care. Basically, looking at historical data from local councils and then saying, right, given this historical data, this is what we think is going to happen in the future. It's sort of the opposite of big data. It's very small data. It's stuff that's in Excel spreadsheets, and it's taking data they already have over the past however many years and actually making it so that local authorities don't go bust and can still make sure that kids have a good education and still make sure that kids get the social care they need.
Isn't it the government's job to make sure that they don't go bust? But,
well, they do, but they
take that on you.
they do, but they call us in.
Bruce is the government.
they call us in to help them do that because it's pretty complicated stuff, and the people who are running it are people who, you know, they understand how to give kids good results. You know, they understand if they do this thing with a child, this child will not suffer. And then what we do is we say, okay, well, if you're going to do these things, then that means these kids are going to go down these pathways, and that means it's going to cost this much. And when they go say, hey, I need more money, and they say, well, why do you need more money? They go, well, just because we need more money. It's like, well, come up with a budget, and they're not budget experts.
Yeah.
But you know, we're experts in forecasting, so we do that.
Because I've noticed that, I mean, the special educational needs, I mean, it's slightly off topic, but it's on topic for what you're doing. But like my sister, I mean, it's a bit personal, I guess, but my sister, when we were growing up, she had Down syndrome, and obviously she had special educational needs. And my nephew is autistic, and it seems to me like now there's like less. I don't want to get into too many reasons why there are fewer mentally handicapped people. I think there are well-known reasons for that, but there's less demand for those kind of services, but more demand for services for autistic people. In the sort of last 20 years, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that the sort of thing that you forecast over, those kind of like the kind of like types of needs as well as the
types of needs and what sort of educational setting they'll be in. So that's the kind of thing that we do is we take sort of age and what type of need you have, you know, social, emotional, mental health, profound, you know, learning disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, and then say, you're going to be in a mainstream school, you're going to be in a SEND unit in a mainstream school, or you're going to be in a special school. And then we take all those things from the historical data and say, right, here's what's happened in history, here's what's going to happen in the future, and combine it with population projections from Office of National Statistics or from the customers themselves or from some third party, and then say, this is what we think is going to happen to you over the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay. And is that all based on like UK data, or do you also combine it with like European or global data as well to get a sort of context?
So it's English data for the most part, but it's certainly UK data that we do with, and it's the internal data that the local authorities hold. So they give us their data, but it's really stripped down. It's literally just this person went from this place to this place in this year, and we trace it over that. So we try to minimize any re-identification risk that might be in there, because we don't need it. We can do it with a very small stripped down data set and still give them really good projections.
Well, it sounds like a really beautiful, worthwhile task,
Well, I think that was sort of I think that was sort of the thing that I'd sort of done, having done a lot of stuff in banking and done through 2008 as well, and done 2007, 2008. I mean, I was actually on holiday when the money market stuff all started crashing in 2007. That sort of led to a lot of the later 2008 crash, and some stuff in media as well. And it's a case of trying to use my powers for good, I think, is sort of where I've been at with it, and trying to. There's been a fair amount of trying to survive to that point, because my goodness, is a sales cycle long in local authority stuff.
Imagine.
But
but no,
it's good
to get the
yes
budget for you guys.
Absolutely,
meta budgeting you need.
Maybe I should start up that service. I wonder how long it'd take to sell that.
And the solution that you're building, or the modeling that you're doing, is it specific to this domain, like education, or is it something, so your company looks at different sorts of social problems and issues?
So what we're doing at the moment is we basically each year we say, right, what are the things that we want to look at in particular that we want to choose to model. There are a lot of people who do sort of the place side of things and do things on planning roads and transport and business tax and neighborhoods and stuff like that, and we're on the people side of things. So it's things like social care and children's social care and education and stuff like that. So each year we sort of say, right, what's the next thing that we think that we can help people with, where there's an impact on the council, they have to make decisions on it, and being able to do some sort of forecast is important enough that they'll want to do it, and tricky enough that they can't do it themselves. The special education model over the last couple of years, I think we spent like $500,000 on it, and it doesn't make sense for every local authority to spend £500,000 trying to develop a model to do it that we can sell for them for a lot cheaper.
That would be crazy.
And also it makes sense when you do this for multiple what do they call, like provinces?
Local authorities. So it's local government. So it's counties and metropolitan boroughs.
Exactly.
And things like
because
that.
you're getting a lot of domain specific data that you can use, and the intelligence that you can give better.
We don't collect in all the data for it. So obviously we learn as a company from it, but it's not like we have some massive data set of all the data from everybody, other than there's a lot of open data around it, and we study the stuff from the open data. But we're not sort of in the building a massive data aggregation business. We're very much in the give us your data, and then we'll help you project it, and then we'll help you go through scenarios of what if you build a new school, or what if you hire new foster carers or something like that, and how's that going to work out as far as your budget goes and as far as the outcomes you want.
And also maybe you can also explain things like not explain, but if one council goes a bit further with the project, then you can already have that feedback and then tell other people that, hey, they implemented this one and it became better.
Absolutely. And they talk to each other about that. I mean, almost the first thing they say whenever they whenever we go in and try to sell them something, and say, oh, can we talk to the other people you worked with? To which we say yes.
So nice. But this seems like a really socially conscious and a useful project. I mean, and a bit
that was the
different than-
idea.
yeah, it's a bit different than let's build another I don't know fucking social network or whatnot and some other thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Advertising and surveillance might be easier to pay the bills, but yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Is it like is it all like reporting, or is there like, maybe it's to your point, Vijay, is there like a collaboration part of the platform, or do they just use Slack or something to talk amongst themselves, and and then then you talk to them about the particular bits of data, or is your platform
so it's a fair amount of, so a lot of it is sort of email, and the data is small enough that we're doing it on local machines, that are secure, though the data is pretty safe by the time it gets to us. So it's a lot of it is, it looks basically like straight up consulting, but it's just we reuse the same model again and again and again, and then improve it as we go along. It's all open source as well. It's all on the GitHub page, so you can, if anybody wants to see how it works, they can go in there. I'm still waiting to get some patches on those models. We've had some patches on some other things before, but nobody's come in and done the models. The nice thing about it as well is it produced stuff like Kixie stats as well. That was born out of that.
Yeah. So how did you pick Clojure for this then? When did you start actually this work?
So this particular work, which is the stuff that's been successful out of Mastodon C. So Mastodon C started in 2012, and when it was just me doing the tech, and it was my former business partner Francine doing sort of the data science side of things and the sales, and she was CEO and I was CTO. I knew I wanted it to be in Clojure because I knew I was going to be the one supporting it. Yeah. And I knew that I could cover the most ground in an industrial strength way with the smallest team using these tools. Basically, there are ways, particularly with data science. So we were doing data science and data engineering then. We still do some data engineering, but it's much more data science now. And you can do this stuff in Python, you can do this stuff in R. Yeah. But doing it in Clojure can. There are a number of times where I would have broken other languages, or would have been really slow in other languages to do the stuff I'm doing, and I'm able to do it faster and in a more bulletproof way in Clojure. So I'm pretty happy with that. And to be honest with you, it's fun. Clojure's the most fun I've had programming since I learned Logo. And I think I was 11 then.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, this is the only reason I keep on programming, And I'm teaching my son now how to program in Clojure, and he is really liking it. I tried to teach him, or we tried to learn together to do some games when he was younger with Swift and Objective-C and then Swift. And Swift was a lot better than Objective-C, but still, he never made a game. He never. Yeah. We went through the videos and we did some examples, but the game was never made. Yeah. But within like a couple of hours of Clojure, he's programming. So, and he's enjoying it, and I enjoy it, And so, and I think, like you say, even after a few years, it's still enjoyable, and that's unusual,
Yeah, and going back and maintaining stuff is enjoyable. I mean, there are a lot of bits, with a legacy code base that's been around for a long time. There are a lot of things you go back and you go, gosh, I really wish I could do that differently now. But I actually quite like the going back and doing it differently, and everything is fundamentally understandable. I mean, there are some things that are a bit more convoluted than I would like them to be, and there's a little bit more to hold in my head, but there's no magic. There's not, this is provided by the platform, or this is provided by some framework I'm using or something like that, or I've got some class that comes in that is really difficult to instantiate even as a mock or something like that. It's all, fundamentally it's all, okay, right. I know at that point I'm putting that data in and I'm getting that data out, and I know that that's where my bug is. And so I can get in there and I can figure out what's going on with it. So it's fun, and it lives well over time. And having worked on lots and lots of legacy systems over the years, there aren't a lot of systems I've seen where you can say that.
Yeah. And what is the stack in general? Because obviously doing data science stuff in Clojure
Mhm.
is not like doing it in Python, because there's like bazillion libraries available in Python, which is
Yeah.
like de facto thing.
Mhm.
Of course, if you use R, I'm assuming there are enough things in R as well.
Yeah.
But how do you compare that with other languages and then doing it in Clojure? Because it must be, from first principles pretty much.
Yeah, sometimes. So having Kixie stats actually helps with an awful lot of that. So that's, I would say, the core of what we do. A lot of the stuff is, finding the right distributions. It's basically learning, training distributions from data, and then using those distributions to simulate new things. Is most of what our models do. They take a small amount of data, learn distributions, and then take those distributions and then project out into the future what's going to happen. And Kixie Stats covers an awful lot of that. With some of the stuff we're doing at the moment, we're not quite there with some of the Kixie Stats stuff, so we're having to use some bits and pieces of R. But now that there's a Clojure, I'm not quite sure how to. It's CLOJISR, which is the new Ruby. Which is the new R bridge rather than the Ruby bridge. It's the new R bridge, and I think I'm going to have a good look at that now that seems to be settling down. So the Clojure stuff that's been going on lately has just been fantastic, and I'm really excited about the stuff that's going on there, because because basically Python had the same problem ages and ages and ages ago, where there were lots of different data science libraries out there that didn't work that well with each other, and there were lots of different choices, and there were a lot of confusion, and everybody went, this is really annoying, and they got together and they did NumPy and SciPy, and that's basically what Clojure is going through at the moment, having learned the lessons of NumPy and SciPy. So it's sort of it's as C# is to Java. I'm sort of hoping Clojure is going to be to R and Python and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the things that's impressive about it as well, is that they're taking a real Clojure being seen as a glue and sort of a language on a platform, as they're saying, a lot of the data visualization stuff is, hey, Vega's really good, let's use that. And there's Oz and Sente and Darkstar, which is basically, slurp in some JSON and then put it through here and then get back some SVG. So it's, from the really simple to, big data exploration tools. And then, things like, what's the name of the data frame library? I've completely forgotten. Chris Nernberg's library. Come on, you guys are supposed to help me out at this point.
No, we don't.
Oh, man.
Come on, BJ. You're meant to be the data scientist, BJ.
Me? What the hell?
That's what you keep on telling me. I'm doing data science every day at work, you say.
I'm doing data engineering, and the data science is mostly with Scala and that kind of nuisance. So it's not really equivalent to Clojure stuff. So I'm only a lurker on Clojure data science stuff.
I mean, it's really good for doing the data engineering stuff, and I love doing. Chris Nernberger, and so it's Tech Ascent.
Oh, we'll look it up.
Yeah.
We'll send our interns to look it up before we continue with this show. While we are doing this, we're sending them.
You have interns? Wow.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize this was.
What do you think? This is like a professional show. It's been four years.
Wow, man.
Shit is going on. So you saw the quality at the beginning. Like, we're trying to figure out, okay, how does this shit work?
TechML data set.
Yeah,
is the one, and lots of really good. All the organizing for that actually happens on Zulip. There's a little bit of There's a little bit of conversation on Slack, but most of the real work happens on Zulip. So just the stuff that's happening with Clojure at the moment is just it's great, and people have gone through a lot of stuff. I mean, it started off with Encounter, and I for a while I had the commit bit on Encounter, which is a little bit terrifying. Given that I'm very much a data engineer who has come to data science.
Wait, I think the other way around. This shows your age when you say you have a commit bit. I don't think people understand this these days anymore.
Oh man! Now you're going to tell them all I've got gray hair, and this is why I agreed to do a podcast, was there wasn't going to be a video.
No, we're not going to reveal everybody, all that stuff. But if you say, I had a commit bit set for this also, then that's obviously takes you like a long way back to the, CVS days. So
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Oh man, I even remember before the CVS days.
Oh yeah,
those were bad days, man.
SCCS.
SCCS and RCS and Visual Source Safe. That was a really bad one.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
Maybe we should stay in the happy Clojure land between the cozy parentheses.
Everybody going into Telnet on the same server and editing files in SCCS and then kicking off a C++ build that takes 3 hours. and then somebody changes one of the files halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
And I remember somebody checks out some shit from Visual Source Safe and then disappears.
And so they got it locked and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. You're completely fucked. And the weird thing is it is still a thing on SharePoint, I think, until, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, but everybody knows SharePoint is evil.
That's true. But Visual Source Safe...
What was the other one that was like Visual Source Safe? Was it very
Perforce?
Perforce wasn't too bad, actually.
BitKeeper? No, BitKeeper was the one that Linus was using.
It was a centralized one that had a sort of
Subversion.
pessimistic looking. No, it wasn't. It was a closed source thing.
Oh, okay. I don't have much.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. The history
it doesn't matter.
I mean, the funny thing is, I don't know about you, how you feel about this, but I feel like, I quite liked SCCS for all of its pains in the ass. I thought it was okay. Simple. I understood it. It was all the stuff about diffing, it was, basically that's all it was. It was just a diff engine, and, that's what most of them are anyway. And it was kind of like, I get it. It was simple and it worked, for many, many years. And then we got into all this ClearCase was the thing I was thinking.
Oh yeah, ClearCase.
It's a real horrible thing. But, and all these things, it all started to become like products, and it became very complicated. Everyone wanted something more complicated, more difficult, really. So it was, and it still feels to me like it's getting that way. Like Git doesn't seem nice to me. Git seems fucking horrible to me.
Well, that's just because you don't use Magit, man.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't use Emacs with
Right. Okay.
You don't use Emacs with Magit. That's the problem. So
it's like every time I try eating something with a fork and then stab myself in the eye with a spoon. I don't like that either. But you don't have to do it like that. There are other ways.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's like saying putting peanut butter on poop. I don't.
No, because
I'm not going to eat that sandwich either.
Because the fundamentals are sound. Just because you can make a spike to drive into your head with steel, and you can make a nice handy spoon with it, doesn't make steel a bad thing.
I think that I agree. The core is pretty good, but the UX is fucking horrible with Git. I think that is the problem. The whole command line is just a weird, fucked up mess of weird commands. And like you just say, okay, you can modify something, or you want to do some, combine commits together. What is the command? Rebase. Okay, everything is fucking a rebase. And that's just mental. And I think that's what they're changing slowly now, right? Because it used to be checkout for branches, checkout for hash commits, and checkouts for whatever. Now they're slowly turning that to switching, so you can just do git switch now instead of saying checkout.
Right. Yeah. See, I do absolutely nothing with git command line, so I know none of this.
Yeah. But the other thing about Git, though, is that now we've got there is a sort of thing on top of Git. There is Git, which everyone kind of, I hate it. I'm sorry, but I get it. I know it gets the job done. I understand that, but I don't have to like it. I don't have to think it's nice UX or whatever. It definitely has some nice properties. The whole the concept of recursive hashing is obviously correct. And that is, I'm a big believer in that. We use it at work. It's no problem. Recursive hashing is the dog's bollocks. I love it, but I hate Git anyway. But my point is, now you've got GitHub. You've got GitHub. And GitHub changes Git and makes it nicer. But also adds a whole bunch of things like pull requests, which don't exist in Git. Yeah. But apparently they do, because now GitLab has them, and you kind of like, even SourceHut has to have them.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the problem, I think, is that now we've got Git and we've got like the culture, we've got everything. And it's difficult to know what the hell Git is anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Apart from something.
That is because people refuse to use emails and patches. You know, they just want a nice clickety green button to click and then just go home. And you know that's the whole problem with most of the shit. Anyway.
Well, also, you know, you're never going to make money that a VC wants you to make by doing something distributed. I mean, that's why that's why there's so few protocols nowadays. Yeah. I miss the good old days of, hey, there's a cool new protocol that you can do something with. This one's called Hypertext Transfer Protocol. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
But I thought Git was going to be a nice protocol. You know, in theory, it didn't have a golden master. There was, you know, it was just meant to be like amongst everyone. But no one ever does that anymore.
Git does have a nice protocol, and you can connect to a Git server via SSH and do interesting stuff with it.
Do whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's just a shame that it hasn't blossomed, if you know what I mean. It's a bit like all of these things, you know, Facebook or whatever. They've all become these big centralized services. So let's hope in the future that these essentially distributed protocols actually get distributed.
But there is version control problem that is solved by Git, but there is this whole mess of software configuration management problem.
It's not solved by Git, by the way. I mean,
no,
I think
that's my point.
Hickey, but Rich Hickey had this. No, but version control isn't even solved. Rich Hickey had this point about Git, which is that it's line based, and actually that's a real bullshit, because having a language based version management system would be a lot better. I mean, the fact that I was talking about SSES, it's all like plus minus. That's what it is. It's just diffs on text files.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, that is your granddad's Git. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous.
So,
really.
I do have to. So, having worked in, gosh, what was it? Visual Age. That was fun. So, no, Visual Age for Smalltalk.
Oh wow! Okay.
And the very first, and also the very first Visual Age for Java, which was very Smalltalk like, in that you didn't have versions. You had an image that you went and created a class, and then you added methods to that class, and then you could play with that. But it was all very much more image based, and the real problem then was I'd been damaged enough by Unix and grep and diff and things like that all of a sudden having that entire tool set taken away from me was really, really frustrating. So while text is a terrible way of doing things, you know, it's a bit like democracy. It's like, you know, it's the least worst way of sorting anything out.
Come on. No. Well, I mean, don't you think that things like, you know, things like JQ even, are like they're entering the command line world, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they are, but they're still
like plus minus.
Still,
you know,
they're still plain
things
text.
are slowly become more. I know it's still text, but the point is that it's like it's aware of some data structures.
I'm very happy to have sugar and interpretation on my text. It's just I want to be able to go back down to the text when I want to. And again, I think this sort of the before coming to Clojure, sort of coming to particularly free software, I would say, for all the wonderfully problematic things that the free software community has in it, that is different from the many problematic things that the open source community has in it. You know, I came to that from, you know, having been burned by proprietary software, you know, initially by Apple, given that one of the first computers I had to go on was my dad's Apple III. Which doesn't really have a successor. Because there was no successor to the Apple III, and an Apple IIc for which there was no successor either. So being constantly dumped by Apple, and then having done some database stuff in Borland Paradox, and then Microsoft FoxPro, and having those things basically disappear out from underneath me, and having writing going back to WordPerfect 5.1 and having that disappear underneath me. I am a big believer in free software, and I'm a big believer in text.
Yeah,
it's like the stuff I write in text hangs around. I think that's why I think a lot of the reason why I got into Lisp was the idea that if I really, really needed to, that I could create my own and get going again.
Yeah. I'm definitely not against text. That was never my point. I mean, you know, my point is just that if you definitely want text, so we're agreed there.
All right then. At the fundamental level, text.
Fundamentally, it's always text.
Yeah.
but there should be some interpretation these days for something that's meant to be a source code management system that is not aware of any language part of the source code that it's managing. Seems pretty dumb, is my point.
Aren't there some plugins now that actually do that, though?
Not
They
yet.
highlight things and stuff like that, but
right.
But we do have, I think when Richik announced Datomic, there was this codec thing that he announced, to keep the whole source code, like function being the unit or whatever, like that level, pretty much. So, but this is, if we make it language specific, then I think
no, it doesn't.
In our world, at least, we are arguing for Lisp everywhere, right, from bottom to top.
No, so but I'm just saying you have to have plugins that can be language aware. So Git should be language aware. That's my point. Not that it should be, everything should be Clojure. I'm not an Emacs block, Come on, I'm not. I'm not saying everything should be one thing. Oh, Elman, have you asked that question yet?
No, that is the next question. So, Bruce, I know it's a rhetorical question. So let's
what do you
give
mean?
It to Ray. Emacs or some other shit.
I think all text editors are great, and people should use what they feel most comfortable in. I feel most comfortable in Emacs and have felt most comfortable in Emacs for for longer than I've been doing Clojure, and I think a lot of it was sort of a general frustration with the languages I was using, and Emacs having very good support as I got into them, basically. So it was a great way of exploring new languages. Like almost always, one of the first things was somebody do a mode for the language in Emacs, so you could get syntax highlighting and go, right, so I need to learn those keywords, or I need to learn that syntax, or if you get the syntax wrong as you're writing stuff out as you're learning the language, that sort of, before linters, there's some syntax highlighters, showing you that your syntax isn't right because the highlighting's all wrong and you forgot, to close a quote or something like that. Before I knew par edit. I mean, I don't ever worry about closing a quote nowadays. Unless I copy and paste things really badly, which does happen sometimes. And then the syntax highlighter will remind me, as will aggressive indent, which is always good. It's always great when you paste something wrong in an aggressive indent, go barfs all over your buffer.
You like an editor that's aggressive.
Absolutely.
Aggressive
it needs to be.
Yeah. Well, only because I ask it to be. I say, would you be my strict friend, please? And it says sure. And then I can say,
Bruce,
but then I think is I can say to it, would you stop being my strict friend, please? Because I need to actually untangle this now. Which I suppose, and that's why I like a dynamically typed language like Clojure as well, is it allows me to explore the space I'm in, given that, a lot of times I'm given a pile, every time I get a new client, I get a pile of Excel files that are almost never formatted the way I ask them to be.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I'm always doing is I'm always poking at it and going, okay, right, how do I turn this data into the format I need it to be? And so being able to create languages that are not type, or being able to create programs that are not type correct and move them more towards type correctness as I go on is exactly what I need to be able to do with my code. And I've got special dispensation from Haskellers for doing language like this, because they say, yeah, given what you do, I wouldn't do Haskell either.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, you're blessed.
Yeah. So that's why Emacs. That's why Clojure. Apart from it being fun, it's sort of they're flexible tools that give me strictness when I want it, but allow me to turn it off when I don't, and give me massive communities of people that are working on it. Which is the other thing I like about Clojure. I like that it's hosted on the JVM, and I before I did Salesforce, I did a lot of Java, so I know my way around the JVM side of things. Know my way around Java, so I can wrap up any Java library I want, because the interop's really good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. that's really
And
good.
do you also use ClojureScript a lot in your projects?
So I have done in the past. Given that we're not shipping anything really in the way of websites at the moment, I mean, I ship a lot of graphics at the moment, but they're all static pings that are put into slide decks. So I don't really ship websites. But when we were shipping websites, I did a lot of ClojureScript then. So I did in version 1. That was exciting.
Yeah.
A quick question for you then, going back to your pings and SVGs and things. Do you have a kind of REPL workflow or a kind of dynamic workflow for those things too?
Yeah. So I'm using CLJ plot for all that at the moment, rather than the Vega stuff. Partly because I needed the Darkstar stuff came out after I needed a way of producing a lot of PNGs really quickly. So given that most of the stuff I do is sort of batch produce 300 PNG files based on the splits of the data I already know I want every time to go and check it. CLJ plot's actually pretty good for that. And then there's a view function in it that just pops up a Java window that has the thing in it. So I could view the PNGs. If I was doing literate program in Emacs, I could have a little ob Clojure block.
Yeah.
Produce the code and then or produce the PNG and then show the PNG in an Emacs buffer. And I've done that kind of stuff before.
So you've been with Clojure Community, I think almost like a dozen years now, almost.
Well, 11.
Yeah. Well, 2020 seems double so far.
So yeah. Okay. Well, then like at least 2 cents. No.
Only double.
If we're talking proper time in 2020, I've been doing Clojure now for 3 or 4 millennia, and it's lost to history how long I've been doing Clojure for.
Yeah. So I think my question is more like, because you're involved in community, you're part of running dojos, in the past as well, and so how did you see from your point of view? As we said, London was one of the hotbed for Clojure, the breeding ground for Clojure stuff. First Euro Clojure being there, and in the last 11 so years, what is your view on the community and the language and evolution of this stuff?
I think the community is really good. I think the Clojure community is really, really friendly and very open and very welcoming. As a community, full stop. I think as a functional programming community and as a Lisp community, it's outrageously open. I think the sort of when I first was learning Clojure, it was things that made me realize it was a good Lisp. One was when I did some training in Clojure, I got to ask, who would it have been? I think it might have been Stu Holloway. And I got to ask him, is our map and reduce and filter the right things to use in Clojure? Because in a lot of Lisp you have these things, but they say, you can't use that because it's not performant. You have to use a loop, and you have to do things all very iteratively in a very annoying way. And he said, no, we're always going to make sure this runs fast. The right thing, the right tool to reach for is always going to be map and filter and reduce and keep and all that stuff. And going through to transducers and core async and everything else, that that's definitely a good bet. So that made me happy. So from a programming point of view, it was good. And then the other thing that made me really happy was from a community point of view, is that Clojure in the very early days really annoyed everybody in comp-lang Lisp, who thought it was a terrible betrayal of the Lisp heritage and the Lisp machine heritage, and they said they were going to have nothing to do with it. And when I realized that all of those jerks were going to stay over there and not come into Clojure, I knew Clojure was going to be a good Lisp to be in.
So do you think it was because of the lack of reader macros? Is that where they kind of like they're all like barfed on it?
So it was reader macros, and it was being hosted on the JVM. I think were the two things that really got
Square
to people.
Brackets as well.
Yeah, and the how could you have anything other than parentheses? And it sort of throwing the toys out of the pram, at that point it's like, oh, okay, right. So that means that none of those really bad people who were really difficult to get by in comp-lang Lisp are not going to come across this community. That's really good. And I think, but sort of being better than comp-lang Lisp is a really low bar.
Yeah.
So, but I think Clojure's done a lot better than that. It's not as diverse as I'd like it to be. Old dinosaurs like me still have problems in how we talk about things sometimes. And I mean, there's some things where it's like I've said things in this, and it's like I shouldn't be saying that because that's not terribly friendly to people who might have mental illness issues, and we should be welcoming to people with mental illness issues like me, who occasionally has mental illness issues. I mean, an awful lot of my time in this community has been with me being burned out and depressed and then coming back from it. So being open and accepting of people in all the different ways they are, as long as they're open, accepting to other people and aren't debating the humanity of the members of the people. I mean, that's a really frustrating thing about racists and bigots and homophobes and transphobes and all the rest of it. Is that damn it, they're still people.
Yeah.
So, but that to me is is certainly something that I felt that we strove for in London Clojurians in particular, which is really important when you're in a city as diverse as London. To be able to say, as long as you were okay with everybody who turns up being human, then you've got a place here in this community. If you're not okay with everybody here being human, then you don't have a place in this community, and you can go away.
Yeah. But it is also because you're one of the people in the beginning of this Clojure community getting this upstart or starting up this community. So obviously the values that Clojure community has, those are contributed by you as well. So that's an awesome thing that you did as well, because you and we spoke with John, all these people getting together and then preparing this fertile ground for making sure that maybe it's not going to become comp-lang Lisp.
Oh God, I hope not.
but it was this is created. You're one of the people, right? So that's really something that I appreciate. As I said before we started recording, like I met you in the first ever thing, and probably not met as in I don't think I'm not a guy who goes to people and then talk to people all the time, but I remember you being very prominent everywhere, and then trying to tell people like, look, you can say things, you can talk, and that is making people like me comfortable, right? And then later I started running a Clojure conference. I was part of that thing in Amsterdam. So it's the people who started, they started you folks, you started it on the right foot.
Good.
So I'm very grateful for that. And
good. That's really important. It's much more important that you found it welcoming than I did anything to make it welcoming. The important thing is that it's a welcoming place. I don't matter. What matters is the community is welcoming.
No, at the end of the day, it's like forest is individual trees, and so you have to see that that there is individual person, how much they're contributing. So I'm very grateful for that. That is the reason. I think before I was just telling you, I had to get a visa to get to London to show up to that thing for just a fucking couple of days.
Yeah. I'm glad you went to that trouble, and I'm glad it was worth your while that you did it.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. Awesome start actually. Yeah. So talking about the community and the language, and because now you are pretty much betting your company in Clojure.
Yeah.
And there are several companies now, and there is a big news now, obviously, in the Clojure world.
Yeah, new bank acquiring Cognitect.
Exactly. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm really happy for the people involved, because I have a feeling they're going to have gotten a lot of money, and I hope that this means that they're going to be financially okay for the rest of their lives, because Rich really deserves to be financially okay for the rest of their lives. And the people who took a bet on Rich, I think deserve that as well, because they basically said, okay, you're really smart. We want to be all over this. We will support you in doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And we will, we'll stand by you and make this work. And that's great, because it's really hard running a business, and it's really hard, trying to do something that isn't just, especially for a consultancy like Cognitect, they should have been renting Rich out at the highest possible rates they could. I mean, he would have never said yes if that was the deal. But once they had him, they should have, it would have been really easy for them to go to him and say, no, we really need to get your billables out there, because we can get an amazing day. We can charge $5,000 a day for you. We should be getting you out there. And he still had lots of time to work on the language, which is really, really good. So, I'm really glad for them from that point of view, for being successful. I'm not quite sure what it means for Datomic. I've told you about my trouble with Fox Pro, and my trouble with Borland Paradox. Oh, good old Borland, such good tools.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, that's one of the things that's always made me a bit twitchy about Datomic.
Being closed source, essentially.
Being closed source essentially is sort of like, okay, well, what does that mean from, I want to be able to keep my data in here forever. Yeah. And it's a real trade-off. You have a proprietary company that goes and does a proprietary thing, and Oracle has been around longer than any of the other things I use, but that doesn't mean that Oracle is going to be around forever, and doesn't mean that it's not going to disappear right when I need it. Whereas with open source stuff, in the very worst case, I have the last commits of the tools. Quite possibly locally. And if they're built in a stack I'm happy with, which is why I tend to like using, tools built on the JVM, tools built in Clojure, I can fix them. And that's part of that's going back to the free software thing. It's the whole there's open source, which is all it's okay if other people close it up, and then there's free software, which the one thing I like about free software that open source didn't get is that free software says it's the end user's rights that matter.
Yeah.
So it's whoever's at the end of that. It's their rights are the ones that matter, not the people who are producing it.
Yeah.
And that to me was a really important thing, because for most software, I'm the end user. Like, I produce some software for some other people, but for 98% of the software I use, I'm the end user. So me having the rights at the end of it to be able to change it, or at least maintain it if I need to keep going. Makes a real difference.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a. It's sort of like maybe it's a bit of a small point with the open source free software stuff, but in theory, you've got a bigger community of people when you've got free software, because the what should we say, the obligations are lower. So therefore you've got more willingness to contribute, and also you haven't got all this like copyright stuff, etc. Contribution licenses and stuff. So it's more. To me, it's a bit more straightforward to contribute to free software than open source software.
Okay, so not the. Because like all the stuff in the GNU project requires a copyright assignment to the Free Software Foundation. So do you mean the other way around? I'm sorry, I'm completely flipped around here.
Well, yeah, I guess maybe.
I think Clojure's weird because it's.
With the Free Software Foundation, it's kind of a non-profit, if you know what I mean. I think that's probably okay. Some stuff doesn't require that, of course, but there are certain things like the FSF. I mean, there are obviously exceptions to this, but a lot of open source stuff is copyrighted to the people that made it, and you have to give it back to them. You can't. It's not. You can't just say, okay, here it is, and you have to go. I mean, the Clojure makes this a problem to me as well. That you have to go through these
CA.
The reason you have to. I mean, the reason you have to go through a CA is so that it can be relicensed if there is a reason it does need to be relicensed. And I think that's the reason Free Software Foundation does it as well, so they can say, right, that these things are going to move from GPL version 2 to GPL version 3 because we found problems with GPL version 2 that we want to be able to patch with GPL version 3. And if you don't do that, then legally you can't do anything about it. And if somebody goes and takes your software, and the Free Software Foundation has sued people that, you know, have taken software and then not actually released it to end users when they ship it to end users, is you can't defend a copyright that's not yours.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, the GPL and copyleft in general is a hack. It's a, hey, so we've got this system that allows us to write contracts that mean that you can use this under certain circumstances, and if you don't abide by the rules in that contract, then we get to sue you under copyright law because you breached the terms of the license, and thus we're not allowing you to use it under copyright. So we can bring the force of copyright down on you, and that's. I'd much rather that we were a lot less worried about copyright, but as far as as long as we do have copyright, and as long as we are in the system we were in, then it's a pretty neat hack to take that system and say, well, if I do this with this system, then I can do something to preserve the end rights of users. Clojure doesn't have that, in that it's Eclipse license, so it's not free software, it's open source software, but I can understand, you know, why he's taken that approach with it, and I can understand why with a programming language like that and what you're trying to do with it. I mean, like with the stuff I'm doing, all our stuff is under the Eclipse license as well, because it's okay, you know, if somebody goes and, you know, takes one of the libraries we're doing and goes and puts it in something proprietary. I'd rather they didn't, but it's okay. So I think it's probably a good fit for, you know, a language like Clojure to say you can build closed source things with Clojure. I'd rather people didn't, but I'm sort of okay overall. You know, the overall net good is worth it for a couple, you know, for some people making proprietary software with it.
Yeah.
It's very difficult with a language to not have that as an option, I think.
I don't think you can say you can only build open source software with this language. Well, you can, I think.
Yeah, you can.
You just need to come up with a new license and then say you can only do this.
You're cutting off a lot of potential audience. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know. Sometimes that's okay. I mean, you know, it's a bit like, you know, talking about the community stuff with saying, you know, if you're a Nazi, you're not welcome here. You know, annoyingly in programming circles, you are cutting off some of your potential audience, but I'm okay with that. Not saying that people who build not saying that people who build closed source softwares are Nazis or anything like that would truly be a false equivalency. But there are times.
Did we reach the, what was it, Godwin's law?
Godwin's law. So
finally we reached Hitler.
So Godwin is still around, and he has said at the moment that if you do actually make comparisons between the Trump administration and some other administrations and Nazis, that it is not a Godwin violation. That's how bad it's gotten. Is the guy who came up with that law says it's okay to call people Nazis now if they're acting like Nazis.
I mean, it's unfortunate that we need to be reminded by somebody that yes, you can do that.
Yeah,
I think that's a better assignment than the guy who made GIF saying that it's pronounced GIF. So I say Jodwin is right about that. Yeah.
Well, I think it's probably, I think I can blame it on you guys. I mean, this whole English mess is because of this fucking like PUT put and BUT button and CUT cut, and like, what the fuck? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me from a guy who is coming from a language where you say what you write and then you write what you say.
I know.
Well,
blame the French for that, really.
Well, there's so many more people
Typical
to blame.
English response.
There's so many more people to blame than just the French, and I mean, you know, how you pronounce.
But can we start there, please? You know,
Sure. I mean, we can start there, but I mean, you know, in American English, you know, it's the same thing, and a lot of the French stuff didn't enter British English until after the 1600s. So, you know, an awful lot of it is just, you know, British things messing up, and then, you know, and it depends on, you know, who in the UK you're talking to and which Anglophonic people you're talking to, because you know, everybody has different ways of pronouncing the language, and that's, you know, that's even in the United Kingdom, and, you know, that's not even getting into things that, you know, that sound like English that aren't English, like Scots, and, you know, and then I mean, you know, the different. Go on, sorry.
The
difference in pronunciation between, you know, Sheffield and Surrey and, Northumberland is pretty different. So
yeah.
Wow.
Just ask people to say grass and Bath.
Oh yeah. But there was an instance of this, of like, because what you're talking about, BJ, is like people reading something and then trying to pronounce it. And it's often you can find with English, you know when someone's kind of like never heard it before, but they've read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my son did this the other day, actually, not to throw him under the bus, but he said,
but as you throw him under the bus. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. He never listens. Don't worry. He says, that's pretty highness. I'm like, what? I was like, no, it's your Royal Highness, No. Oh, I know. You mean highness. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
But in Dutch, highness is like, it's the correct pronunciation, H-E-I,
Okay.
But,
yeah. But this happened a lot with me because I never had access to people speaking English to me that much.
Right.
So we only read the stuff, and then we have one English teacher, and as you can notice, we have this thick accent, like the Indian people speaking English, and I never knew is it Celtic or is it Celtic or is it Celtis? Or I have no idea.
Yeah, if it's a football club, it's Celtic, and if it's language, it's Celtic.
Oh, thank you. That clears it all. So there are so many things like this. Like I keep reading in the books and looking up in the dictionary, and obviously I'm not that smart to figure out the phonetic shit around that one. Just say it in the way that I want, and then like suddenly, I ended up with people who speak English, and then if I say something, they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
How many people speak English in the Indian subcontinent? Do you think?
Everybody these days?
but I mean, it's not going to be. It's not going to be a billion, is it? It's going to be something shy of that.
But it's really strange. It depends on what you mean by how much they speak, because there are so many words in our language that are just don't have any our words anymore. Mm-hmm. So we have rail for train, and we have I never said my language word for school in my language.
Right.
So my mother, she's a school teacher. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's what even in my own language, if you go there and then if you say, what do you work as? They'll say, I'm a school teacher.
So it's a low weekend.
So it's like everything. So many English words are like, into this thing. So most of the people understand the basic stuff pretty easily.
I think it's fine. People though.
Sorry?
There's a lot of indigenous people in India.
Yeah, of course. But the thing is that the English has proliferated so much everywhere. And because it's also one of the official languages, right? If you want to go to a bank, then it's a bank. Right, there is no translation for it anymore.
But I think what I'm saying is that I have a feeling that more people probably speak English in the Indian subcontinent than any other country in the world. So if we're gonna choose any accent as being normal, I think if we're going to say what's the average accent
from Indian stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think we're all doing it wrong. Basically, we're the ones who are talking funny.
That's true. Yeah. Well, democracy. There is democracy for you. To bring it to the common.
But that used to be the argument for American English, didn't it? Because there was more Americans than there are British people. But still.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that gets me about British English is just or rather, so it's not all British English. It's any English accent that's non-rhotic, and it's making law and lore rhyme. Does my head in, or actually making law sound more like lore than lore does, and there are people, particularly in the south of England, who do that. Who say, "Oh, I'm in the law." It's like, you're in the what?
But this is something that I think last time when we were talking to Mia, I think we were saying the same thing to Ray as well, because whenever he says data, I hear datar. Yeah. He says Java, I hear Javar. Like there is R sound everywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember I moved from. I mean, you talk about like people accepting differences, etc. But if you move from the northeast, like I was born in the northeast of England, and I moved to London, and holy fuck, so many people like just laugh at your accent all the time.
Wow,
it's kind of like I guess you kind of accept it, but it's very annoying, you know.
Yeah.
You've what have I done wrong, you know?
But if you actually met anybody in London who's actually from London, I think I've only met when I lived in London. I think I've only met like. All right, see, that didn't happen to me when I lived in London. I worked with
normal people, see, not the highfalutin elites that you worked with, Bruce.
That's what it is. I'm working up with all the metropolitan elites. That'll explain it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was working with the lowest of the low, you know.
But you were in banking too.
Actually, I was. Yeah. Yeah, those guys don't come from London, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're I
worked in the government before that. Yeah.
All right. Oh well,
anyway,
yeah,
that's a good detour for languages and accents. So
yes.
coming back to Clojure, maybe
just before we finish on the languages and accents, though, because you're it is an interesting one. Maybe is that I think you're now living in Scotland, aren't you, Bruce?
I am.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. So how are you finding that from a sort of accent perspective?
I love it. It's a lot of fun. I've gotten I love the Dundee accent, and I love it. So it's Scots rather than Gaelic over here. So there are lots of people who speak Scots or a particular form of Scots called Doric, and it's a lot of fun hearing that, because it is when I was doing medieval literature, one of the things I did in addition to doing Middle English, I did Middle Scots. And it's interesting sort of hearing all the different things in it, and hearing there are a lot of things in English in the north of England that are still a lot like Middle English or even Anglo-Saxon, and then lots of things where you can go, okay, right, that's actually medieval Norse borrow word that's come through. And so there are a lot of things like that, and that's true in sort of Scots as well, as a lot of the Scots stuff is, you can see the roots back to Middle Scots and things like that have still held on, because, communities were, quite tight knit.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the accent really, really hangs around, and the people who did move in, tended to learn the local language.
So do you explain to the local people what their accent is all about? It's like you Scots-plain to them.
I try to avoid. I try to avoid Scots-plaining for the most part. For the most part, though, I do have a lot of fun sort of English and British splaining to an awful lot of people as an American.
Right.
So though I'm only a part-time American, because I was born in the UK, so you can't get rid of me because I was born in the UK early enough that I'm a citizen. So I do have a lot of fun when people try explaining to me bits about British history and how things have always been British, and it's like, yeah, that's not always been British. That only goes back to like the 1950s, or things like something really old in Britain, like something that's been around in Britain forever and ever. Sticky toffee pudding, right? Sticky toffee pudding's been around in Britain forever. I mean, it's got to at least be 19th century, right, Ray?
I have no idea, but it seems pretty recent to me.
Yeah, it's from the 1970s. It's
Right, yeah. I mean, I think like gruel or something. Fair enough, porridge.
Yeah.
But that's mostly Scottish anyway. Scots oats and stuff like this. Baked potatoes, maybe. I would think this would be the earliest British cooking, and it's still the best.
But baked potato. Do you know where baked potatoes are from? They're from South America.
Yeah,
potatoes are from South America. Potatoes aren't British, and
that's true.
It used to be barley in Scotland. It was oats are relatively recent. Oats are like 17th, 18th century. So oats are quite recent. Sort of medieval Scots would have been eating barley. They would have been eating barley porridge, sort of peas pudding and stuff like that, with barley rather than oats. So all these things that feel like they're forever, and that's the weird thing about it, is that Britain is really good at marketing itself as this has been happening forever. It's like, no, it's not. That's only
yesterday.
That's only been going on for the last 5 years, and I remember the marketing campaign about it. Plowman sandwiches. Oh, that's been around forever, and that was the cheese board post World War II, saying, oh, we need to do something with cheese. What are we going to do?
Nice. Anyway,
Clojure.
Yes.
It's a great
Emacs.
language. I think everybody should use it. Emacs is wonderful. VI is wonderful. Use whatever works for you. I like Emacs, for the same reason I like other free software stuff. Is it's going to be around forever.
Yeah. Nice. I think on that wonderful note, I think we are right above 1 hour already. So it's been fantastic talking to you, Bruce, and keep on doing great work, and especially the kind of work that you're doing, with using Clojure, obviously, which is awesome, but also solving a problem that is more meaningful and impactful. So that is amazing, and all the stuff that you did for the community, and even still, today. Even for today.
So I think with the community, I want to thank all the people who complained, partly because every time they complained, I said, "Oh, that's a great idea. I'll help you organize the event," which is sort of, I think that was the secret sauce in the community, and I particularly want to thank Robert for tricking me into it, and John for carrying on with it, and people like Yelena and Mario and people like that who carried on with the dojos, and all the other people, doing things in Amsterdam, and everybody else has been out doing all the community stuff. I think that's been great. It's been great seeing something that I put a lot of work into and tried really hard to make sure that other people did it, and watching other people carry on with it and having it live well beyond my involvement with it. That's just been fantastic. I think that just makes me so super happy.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we're doing this for ourselves, so that's a given.
Yeah.
This podcast is entirely about ourselves trying to figure out medieval Scots stuff. that was the reason.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks a lot, and stay safe. And people who are listening to the podcast, stay safe as well, and keep writing awesome software. And that's it from us for today. Thank you for listening to this episode of DefN. And the awesome vegetarian music or the track is Melon Hamburger by Pizzeri. And the show's audio is mixed by Wouter Dullert. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name. Maybe you should insert your own name here, Dullert.
More again.
If you'd like to support us, please do check out our Patreon page. And you can show your appreciation to all the hard work or the lack of hard work that we're doing. And you can also catch up with either Ray, with me, for some unexplainable reason. You want to interact with us, then do check us out on Slack, Clojurian Slack or Clojureverse, or on Zulip, or just at us at DefN Podcast on Twitter. Enjoy your day, and see you in the next episode.